All right, so you wanted to go deep on this one, huh?
It's a popular one.
It really is.
Yeah.
1984, George Orwell's, dystopian masterpiece, kind of haunting us all these years later. And
For sure.
it's been on the list for a while, and I'm excited to finally get to dive into it.
Yeah.
So we've got this excerpt about 1984.
Right.
And we're going to kind of go through that and talk about why it is that this book is still so relevant today, even though it was published in 1949.
It's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think what grabs people is that it's not just like a, straight dystopian thriller. It's also this really creepy psychological look at how power works.
Yeah.
And how language can be like a weapon.
Totally.
And what happens when you're like one little person against this huge system.
Yeah, it's definitely a book that gets under your skin.
It does.
So let's set the stage here.
Okay.
For folks who maybe haven't read it recently or ever.
It takes place in this place called Oceania, one of 3 kind of global superstates. They're always at war with each other.
Right.
And in Oceania, you've got the party, led by this figure, Big Brother, who is everywhere but nowhere.
Right.
And they control everything.
Everything.
I mean, every aspect of people's lives.
Yeah, and it's not just like, brute force.
Right.
They really focus on controlling information and thought and even emotions.
Totally.
So they rewrite history at the Ministry of Truth. They have Newspeak.
Yeah.
This whole language thing to try to limit how people can even think.
Yeah.
And there's surveillance everywhere to keep everybody scared.
Yeah, Big Brother is watching you.
Exactly.
Pretty bleak stuff.
Pretty bleak.
So in this world, we meet our main guy, Winston Smith,
Yeah.
who's working at the Ministry of Truth. He's kind of this ordinary guy just trying to get by. But he is really troubled by the party. He's conflicted.
He's conflicted. He sees the lies and the manipulation, and it's eating away at him.
It is.
So what makes Winston such a compelling character?
I think it's that he's not like some big hero. He's just a normal dude.
Right.
And he just wants to be free.
Yeah.
Like you and me.
Totally.
And so even this tiny thing like buying a diary and writing down his thoughts, that's like a huge act of rebellion in Oceania.
Right.
It's like he's trying to be a person
Yeah.
in a world where they don't want you to be a person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that diary really becomes a symbol of Winston's inner struggle, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's like this little private space where he can actually
It is.
be himself.
Yeah. It's like his way of trying to get his own mind back in a world that's trying to take it.
Right. And then, of course, he meets Julia.
Yeah.
And their relationship really throws another wrench into things.
Oh, for sure.
They have this intense connection, full of passion, and, it's like this bright spark in this otherwise really dreary and controlled world.
Yeah.
So what's going on there with them?
Well, I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's both really personal and really political at the same time.
Yeah.
They just crave freedom. They want to feel something real,
Yeah.
in this world that's so cold and fake.
Totally.
But it's also a huge middle finger to the party.
Right. Right?
They're saying we're going to love each other.
Yeah.
We're going to have our own feelings.
Yeah.
And you can't stop us.
Right. Because the party wants to control even like
Everything.
the most private parts of your life.
Yeah, they want to get rid of all those individual urges and desires.
Right.
And just make everybody into these, robots.
Yeah. It's almost like their relationship becomes kind of this
Yes.
microcosm of the bigger
It is.
fight for freedom.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because they rebel in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Julia's more about just, living in the moment, grabbing a little happiness where she can.
Right.
Winston's got this deeper thing. He wants to understand what's really going on.
Right.
He thinks knowledge is the key,
Right.
to fighting back.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it makes their connection even more interesting. But,
Yeah.
we can't forget about O'Brien.
Brian, yeah.
This high-ranking party member who kind of comes in and
Oh, he's a slippery one.
seems like he's offering Winston and Julia some hope.
He does. He really does.
He's going on with him.
O'Brien, he's like the scariest part of the party.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way they just get inside your head?
Mm-hmm.
He acts like he gets Winston.
Yeah.
Like he understands.
Right.
But he's playing him the whole time.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate puppet master.
It's brutal. That moment when Winston realizes...
Oh, just crushing.
that O'Brien has been manipulating him all along.
It is. It's like the party wins.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right, and that's kind of where Room 101 comes in.
Yeah.
Like the most terrifying place in this whole terrifying world.
It's like the ultimate symbol of how cruel the party is.
Yeah, just the name Room 101 like sends chills down my spine.
It does, doesn't it?
They use your deepest fears to just completely break you.
Yeah, that's the point.
It's awful.
It is.
So what is Room 101 really about?
It's about control. You know, they don't just want you to do what they say.
Right.
They want to own your mind.
Right.
They want you to love Big Brother.
Right.
Even though you hate everything he stands for.
Even though you know it's all a lie?
Yeah, they want to break you so completely that you don't even know it's real anymore.
Right, and that's where we see Winston's tragic downfall.
Yeah.
The ending of 1984 is like one of the most devastating things I've ever read.
It is.
He betrays Julia, embraces Big Brother, and just completely submits to...
It's heartbreaking.
The party's twisted reality.
It is. It's not just about one guy losing.
Right.
You know, it's about truth losing.
Yeah.
And fear winning and everybody just going along with it.
It's like Orwell is saying that this could happen to any of us. That we're all vulnerable to this kind of manipulation.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, what happens when they can control not just what you do, but what you think and feel.
It's a question that sticks with you.
It does.
Long after you finish the book.
Yeah, it makes you think about the world differently.
And it's what makes 1984 so much more than just a dystopian story. It's really a deep look at what it means to be human.
It is.
And a warning about what can happen when power goes unchecked.
A big warning.
A very big warning.
Yeah. It really does make you think, doesn't it?
It does. It's like this warning that keeps echoing through the years. And, you know, you almost feel like Orwell kind of predicted some of the things that we're dealing with now.
It's like he saw it coming.
Yeah.
This whole digital age and all the anxieties that come with it, you know, all this technology.
Yeah.
On one hand, it's super convenient.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it could be a tool for, like, ultimate control.
I was just rereading the part about the telescreens.
Oh, yeah.
Those two-way televisions that are always watching people in their homes. And I was thinking, like, is that kind of like Alexa or...
It is.
You know all those smart home devices? Except in 1984, they take it to a whole...
Yeah, they're way creepier.
Way creepier level.
Wow.
Those telescreens aren't just like passive devices, right? They're the party's way of being.
Yeah.
Everywhere, all the time.
Yeah, they're like this constant presence in people's lives.
Yeah.
Like a reminder that they're always being watched and listened to.
It makes you wonder, like, what would Winston's diary...
Oh, that's a good question.
...have looked like if he had to deal with, like...
facial
recognition software and all that stuff.
Oh, man, and internet surveillance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The level of surveillance we have now is just mind-blowing.
Orwell couldn't have even imagined it.
Right. He was worried about, like, totalitarian governments with limited tech.
Yeah.
Now we've got...
algorithms and data mining. And this global network that can track everything we do online and offline.
It's like we're willingly submitting to a level of surveillance that would have, like, terrified Winston.
Yeah, we post our thoughts and feelings online. We share our location.
We let companies track our browsing habits.
I know, it's like we're asking to be monitored.
It's pretty unsettling.
We've gotten so used to it that we don't even think about it anymore. But it brings up some serious ethical questions. About privacy and whether we really consent to all this. And what could happen if somebody misused all that data?
It's a scary thought.
It is. Imagine like a government or a big corporation getting their hands on all that information.
And using it to manipulate people?
Exactly.
Oh, it's like that episode of Black Mirror.
I know.
Where everyone's rated based on their social interactions. It's terrifying.
It's not that far-fetched to think that could actually happen. Like, what if our digital footprints determine our worth? Or whether we get opportunity?
Or even our social standing.
Exactly.
That's why 1984 is still so relevant. It's a warning about what happens when we give up our privacy and our autonomy.
In the name of convenience or security.
Okay, so we've got these parallels between, like, the telescreens and modern surveillance. But what about Newspeak?
Oh.
This whole concept of...
It's brilliant and terrifying.
How does that connect to the world we live in today?
Well, Newspeak isn't just like, a simpler language.
Right.
It's a way to control thought.
Yeah.
By getting rid of words that express dissent or critical thinking or complex emotions.
Right.
The party is trying to limit what people can even think.
It's like they're trying to make it impossible to even think rebellious thoughts.
Yeah.
Is there anything remotely similar happening to
Well, maybe not as obvious as in Oceania.
Right.
But there are definitely ways that language is being used to shape public opinion and control the narrative.
Yeah.
Think about how certain terms are used to frame debates or to demonize opponents or to get an emotional response.
Right.
Instead of making people think critically.
You're right. It's like certain words become loaded with political baggage and suddenly everyone's arguing about the definition of words instead of the actual issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or what about cancel culture where people are like shut down or ostracized for expressing views that are considered unacceptable.
Right.
And it's like, I get it. We need to call out harmful speech.
Of course.
But there's also this danger of creating an atmosphere where people are afraid to speak their minds.
To disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah, to challenge the prevailing narrative.
It's like we're losing the ability
I think we are.
to have like nuanced conversations, to disagree respectfully, and to grapple with complex ideas without resorting to like outrage or censorship.
It's a problem.
Yeah, it's like the party in 1984.
Right.
They control language to eliminate dissent and enforce conformity.
Exactly.
And we need to be wary of anything that tries to limit free expression or stifle open debate.
Even if it's disguised as like protecting people or promoting values.
It's all about finding that balance, isn't it?
It is.
Between protecting free speech and preventing the spread of harmful ideologies.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
And that's where critical thinking is so important.
Yeah.
We have to be able to evaluate information.
Right.
Recognize biases. Figure out what's a genuine argument.
Yeah.
And what's just manipulative rhetoric.
Yeah, it's like Orwell is saying that language isn't just about communication, it's about power.
It is.
Whoever controls the language.
Controls the narrative.
Controls the narrative.
Controls the debate.
The debate.
And ultimately controls people's minds.
Yeah, it's pretty profound.
It is.
And that's another reason why 1984 is so relevant. It's a reminder that we have to be vigilant about defending our right to express ourselves freely, even when our opinions challenge the status quo.
Even when they make people uncomfortable.
Exactly. So we've talked about surveillance. We've talked about language control.
Yep.
What about this whole idea of doublethink?
Oh, doublethink.
The ability to hold two contradictory beliefs simultaneously.
It's crazy.
Does that play out in the real world?
Doublethink is like the most insidious part of the party's whole thing.
Right.
It's the ability to believe two opposite things at the same time. To believe whatever the party tells you.
Right.
Even if it contradicts what you know to be true.
Yeah, it's like that famous party slogan.
Oh, yeah.
War is peace.
Freedom is slavery.
Freedom is slavery.
Ignorance is strength.
It makes no sense.
It's totally illogical.
But somehow, people in Oceania accept it.
Yeah, they just swallow it whole.
That's the power of doublethink. It just shuts down your critical thinking and creates this population that's easily manipulated.
Right.
Okay, so we might not have like such obvious examples of doublethink in our world.
Maybe not that blatant.
But are there like subtle ways
that
we're being conditioned to accept contradictory or hypocritical narratives?
I think so.
Give me an example.
Think about how we get our news.
Okay.
We're constantly bombarded with conflicting viewpoints.
Right.
And it's all presented in this, partisan or sensationalized way.
Right.
So it can be hard to tell what's true and what's not.
Right. And we end up...
Yeah, but we might just accept contradictory information.
Right, without even realizing it.
Without even realizing it.
What about social media?
Oh, social media.
Yeah, we present these like idealized versions of ourselves online.
Totally.
Often contradicting our offline behavior or beliefs.
Right, it's like we're all doing doublethink.
Yeah.
Putting on this curated self for the world to see.
Yeah, but underneath we're full of doubts and complexities.
Right.
That's a great example.
I think so.
It shows how doublethink can really mess with your head.
Yeah.
You know, you create this disconnect between your inner life and your outer persona.
And it can make you feel fake and fragmented.
Right. Okay, so got surveillance, language control, doublethink.
Yep.
All pretty heavy stuff.
It is.
What about this idea of the loss of individuality?
Oh, yeah.
Is that something that you see reflected in our modern world as well?
I do. We may not have, you know, the thought police knocking on our doors.
Right.
But there's definitely pressure to conform, especially online.
Yeah.
Think about the pressure to present a certain image on social media.
Right.
Or to follow all the trends.
Yeah.
Or to only express opinions that are acceptable.
Right, to your social group.
Yeah, it's like everybody's trying to fit into these boxes, you know, striving for likes and validation instead of just being themselves.
Yeah, and that can really stifle individuality and creativity.
Yeah, when we're constantly bombarded with images of how we should look and think and behave, it's hard to develop your own sense of self and to embrace what makes you unique.
You know, it's interesting. Winston and Julia's rebellion in 1984, it was partly about reclaiming their individuality.
It was.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Their love affair was this act of defiance against the party's attempt to control every part of their lives.
They wanted to be real people.
Right.
Not just cogs in the machine.
Yeah. And it reminds us that even in the face of overwhelming conformity, there's this basic human need for individual expression and authentic connection.
We need that.
Yeah, we do.
We need to connect.
So how do we resist?
That's the big question.
Yeah, how do we resist this pressure to conform?
Right.
Especially in this world that's so driven by...
algorithms and trends.
Yeah, algorithms and online trends.
How do we stay true to ourselves and develop our own unique voices?
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
I think we need to explore that further.
We do.
Yeah, let's delve into that idea of resistance in 1984.
Okay.
And see how it applies to our own lives.
All right.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the heavy stuff in 1984, the surveillance and the manipulation of language and that pressure to conform.
Right.
But even in this super oppressive world, Winston and Julia find ways to resist.
They do.
So what can we learn from their rebellion, even though it ultimately fails?
Well, I think it's interesting that it starts with something so basic.
Okay.
Just a desire for real human connection. Their love affair becomes this powerful act of defiance against this system that's trying to control every aspect of their lives.
It's like by choosing to love freely, they're taking back a part of themselves.
Exactly.
That the party can't touch.
Yeah, and it's not just about romantic love. It's about that human need for connection. For shared experiences. For moments of beauty and joy. That exist outside the party's control.
It's like those secret meetings in that little room above the antique shop, or those stolen moments in the countryside. Those become these little pockets of freedom.
They do.
In this otherwise really suffocating world.
Little bubbles of rebellion.
Yeah, and it's interesting how their rebellion takes different forms.
It does.
Julia is more about living in the moment, finding pleasure where she can.
Yeah, just enjoying life.
Winston is searching for something deeper.
Yeah, he wants to understand the past.
Right.
He thinks knowledge is power.
Right.
And that's how you fight back against the party's lies.
So they have these different approaches.
They do.
But it's all about reclaiming their humanity.
Exactly.
Their right to think and feel for themselves.
Yeah, to be human.
But we know it doesn't end well.
No, it doesn't.
Their rebellion is crushed.
It is.
And that's where 1984 gets really scary.
It does.
The party doesn't just want obedience.
Right.
It demands total submission.
They want to break you.
Yeah.
Completely.
They force Winston to betray Julia and to embrace Big Brother.
And to love Big Brother.
It's a reminder of how powerful fear and manipulation can be.
It's a chilling reminder.
Yeah.
It really is.
The ending of 1984 is brutal.
It's devastating.
But is there any hope?
That's a good question.
I mean, can we learn anything from Winston and Julia's struggle?
I think so.
Even though it ends in defeat.
I think the key takeaway is that resistance matters.
Okay.
Even if it doesn't lead to victory right away. It's about affirming our humanity.
Okay.
It's about saying no.
Right.
We won't be completely dominated.
So even small acts of defiance can have meaning.
Absolutely.
Standing up for what we believe in, speaking truth to power.
Yes.
Connecting with others who share our values.
Right.
Those are all ways to resist.
Those are all ways to fight back.
It makes me think about the role of art and literature in resisting conformity.
Right.
Winston finds comfort in his diary.
He does.
You know, trying to preserve his memories. And express his thoughts.
It's a powerful reminder.
It is.
That creative expression can be an act of rebellion.
So art, music, literature, they can provide spaces for dissent.
They can.
For challenging the dominant narratives. For imagining different realities.
And they can inspire hope and solidarity.
Okay, so we've established that 1984 is more than just a dystopian thriller.
Right.
It's a call to action.
It is.
A warning about the dangers of unchecked power. And a reminder that we have to resist conformity and defend our freedoms.
We can't be complacent.
But here's the big question.
Okay.
Could a society like Oceania actually exist? Or is it just a fictional nightmare?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's one that's been haunting readers for decades.
We've seen throughout history how regimes have used propaganda, surveillance, fear to control people.
To control their population.
While technology has given governments and corporations unprecedented power.
Right. They have tools to monitor and manipulate us.
So the potential for control is greater than ever.
It is.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
It's not just about the technology.
Right.
It's about human choices.
It is.
A society like Oceania can only exist if enough people are willing to comply.
To go along with it.
Yeah, to enforce the rules.
To turn on each other. To silence their own doubts.
So the real danger isn't some all-powerful big brother.
No.
It's our own apathy.
It's our willingness to look the other way.
Right.
When we see injustice.
And our fear of standing up for what we believe in.
That's the real danger.
It's like 1984 isn't just a warning about totalitarian regimes. It's a warning about human nature. About our potential for cruelty.
For conformity.
And self-deception.
It's a reminder that we have to be vigilant.
Yes.
About defending our freedoms.
Not just from external threats, but from our own tendencies toward complacency.
And fear.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
But it's also empowering, in a way.
I think so.
We have a choice.
We do.
In how we respond to the challenges of our time.
We can choose to be passive.
Right.
Or we can choose to be active.
We can be critical thinkers.
Yes.
Engaged citizens. Defenders of freedom.
We have the power to shape our own future.
The future isn't predetermined.
That is,
it's something we create.
It's something we make.
Through our choices and our actions.
And our willingness to resist.
1984 may be a dystopian novel, but it offers a message of hope.
I think it does.
It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure. And our capacity for love, connection, and resistance can never be fully extinguished.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is.
And it's a powerful message.
It's a book that stays with you.
It does.
Long after you finish reading it.
It makes you question everything.
It does. It challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves.
About the world.
And the world we live in.
It does.
And ultimately, it leaves us with a sense of responsibility for shaping a future where the dystopian vision of Oceania remains firmly in the realm of fiction.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into 1984.
My pleasure.
We hope it sparked some thoughtful conversations and inspired you to revisit this timeless classic.
Yeah, give it another read.
With fresh eyes.
It's worth it.
Remember, the world of 1984 isn't inevitable.
No, it's not.
The choices we make today determine the kind of world we'll live in tomorrow.
We have the power.
Stay informed.
Stay engaged.
And never stop questioning.
Never stop questioning.